Hello everyone and welcome to the Dungeon Adventure tutorial. Right here I have forked from the original, you'll see the original page here. This is linked on OpenClass. You'll just press this fork button and then you'll choose yourself as an owner. Here I am with the fork. So I'm going to copy it. So I'll click this green code button. I will copy it. Now I'm going to open my Git Bash. So I've kind of zoomed in here so that you can see it better. First, you want to just navigate to where you're going to save this. So I've already navigated to the folder where I'm going to be saving this. And I can just make sure everything looks good. Yep, okay. So now I'm going to just type in git clone and I'm going to insert what I just copied. Again, the hotkeys for that are Control Shift Insert, or you can just right click and choose to paste it. We'll press enter. And now we'll see it now exists under Dungeon Quest. We can open it by pressing code and then typing in Dungeon Quest, and this will open VS Code with this file. All right, now we have VS Code open. Going to open our dungeonadventure.py file. In the file, we can see it first. We're going to, at the top, we always import any libraries that we will be using. For this exercise, we only need to add the random library. And then we have this main function that we have defined here, right? So I just kind of minimized this if you ever want to do that. We just minimized it this way. So we have everything is wrapped inside this main function. And then down here, this just means that if we're running this file on its own, it's going to execute that main function. Aside from that, we don't have to worry about that. That's not going to change. Let's go in here. And I'm going to sort of just do this just to help us. I'm going to put all of these in to start with, just so we can just not get too overwhelmed. It looks like we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. We have 7 different functions here. And then this, you'll see, like, we're not going to change this. This just assigns the setup player to player, treasures to create treasures, and then it runs the game loop with player and treasures with these things. Okay, let's start with the first thing. Please remember that these doc strings are important and they go at the top of your function. I saw a lot of you guys sort of like left all this on the bottom. This is part of your function setup. You want this to be on the top. And it's important to read it because it'll help you understand what should happen inside this function and what it will return. So it prompts the user to create their player profile. It's going to return a dictionary. Inside the dictionary, we're going to have name with the player's name, health starting with 10, and inventory starting as an empty list. And we can see this example. So if we were to run just setup player, we're prompted for our name, and then we're returned this dictionary. So these little to-dos, you can just do things right underneath. So that's ask the user for their name using input. So we can just say, you know, username equals input, and we can type anything we want. We could say, tell us your name, brave adventurer. Okay, done. So we have saved the username. We're going to initialize a dictionary with the keys name, health, and inventory. And of course, we've read up here, it starts as 10, and inventory starts as an empty list, and the name is a username. So we could just call this user dictionary, userdict equals, and recall dictionaries are the curly brackets, and we will have the sets of key value pairs are separated by commas, and recall that everything is in strings. So name, that's the key. We use a colon, and then we put what we want the name to be. It's going to be username. This username, this is this variable. So this is not a quote, or this is not using quotes. This is not a string. This is a variable name. We're going to separate it by a comma, and then we are going to have health, and we're going to set that to 0 to start with, or sorry, 10, 10 to start with. And then of course inventory, we'll have another colon, and it's an empty list, which is just brackets side to side. The last item does not need a comma. This is our user dictionary, and we want to return that. The function will return the dictionary we just made. So we just write return userdict. Okay, that's all we have. And this one's done. That's all we have to do. So let's go to the next one, create treasures. Again, the stock string is important. It tells you what to do. This function creates a dictionary of treasures where each treasure has a value. It says you can customize them or randomize the values however you want. We're going to do it the most simple way for the walkthrough. To do, create a dictionary of treasure names and integer values. We're just going to call it treasures. We're going to make it a dictionary, and guess what? I'm lazy. I'm just stealing this. You can do that. That's fine. Coming up with random names of treasures is not the point of the exercise. So if it's fun for you and you just want to write your own treasures with their own values, that's awesome. Otherwise, just copy and paste this. That's okay. And then, of course, we want to return that dictionary. So we'll use that return word, return treasures. That's all this does. It just creates the treasures, just creates the dictionary of treasures. That's all it needs to do. So if you run this, it's going to return a dictionary full of treasures where each one has a value. Let's move on. Display options. This one, you're going to display available options for the player in the current room. So the arguments where you get the room number comes in as an argument. It's an integer. That's the current room number. The output example is you are in room 3. What would you like to do? So print the room number in the 4 menu options listed above. We know it's going to be a print statement. And there's several ways that you can do this. The easiest way, in my opinion, is to have a multi-line print statement. And once again, I'm going to copy and paste this because I'm going to be a little lazy here. And there's just something we need to change, right? So this says you are in room 3. We don't want it to have 3, we want it to be room number. So what we can do is add a little F here. And then instead of 3, in our curly braces, we're going to put room number. So now, anytime this function is called, move this over here, it's going to print you are in room and then current room number. What would you like to do? And it shows you your options. That's all this one does. Let's go to search room. Search room simulates searching the current room. If the outcome is treasure, the player gains an item from treasures. If the outcome is trap, the player loses 2 health points. So it gets 2 arguments here. The player, which is the dictionary, that's the player's current stats. So we first created it way up here. We set up player, we made that dictionary, and then as the game is played, that dictionary is of course modified. And this one uses the current stats, and then treasures, dictionary of available treasures. So that's where we made up here. Create treasures, it returned that treasure dictionary. That's what that is. To do, randomly assign outcome equals random.choice treasure trap. Okay, let's just call the variable name outcome. That works. We can write in exactly that. Outcome equals random.choice. And then from that list, we have treasure and trap. So now this outcome is going to be a randomly selected choice of treasure or trap. Okay, write an if-else to handle treasure versus trap outcomes. All right, so we have to say if outcome equals treasure, we're going to do something here, right? Else, if it's not treasure, then it's trap, so we'll just say else, and then we'll do something here. But notice these to-dos. That should happen to both of these. So we're going to just copy and paste these little to-dos here, just knowing that they need to happen in both of these, right? That's not necessary, but just to kind of help you think through things. So if the outcome is treasure, what's the first thing? Well, they need to add the treasure to their inventory. So the way that I did it was I just kind of created a new variable. I called it new treasure. And I wanted it to be a randomly selected item from our treasure dictionary. So we know we can use random.choice. But inside of the choice, we can't just do treasure.keys, right? This actually won't work because random.choice doesn't work on dictionary keys. It works on lists. So what we can do is just make it a list. This is something where I would expect you to probably have had to look up in Google to search a little bit for that, which would be you would Google something like how to randomly select keys or values from a dictionary using random.choice. We learned we can make the treasure keys into a list and then use random choice just like we did up here. Now we need to append that new treasure to our inventory. So recall it's taking in this player dictionary is one of the arguments. So we have player, and then inside inventory is the key. So now we can just append that. That inventory is a list, and lists have the ability to append. So what we're appending it with? The new treasure, of course. So we've assigned this new treasure to a random choice from our treasure dictionary. And then we've taken our player inventory list and we've appended the new treasure to that list. And I want to point out, of course, this is the name of the treasure. This isn't a key value pair that is appending to this inventory. It's just the name. We're using just the keys here. That's important to remember for things that come later. So the inventory list is just the name of the items, not the value of the items. And then we're going to print a message describing what happened. So that's simple. We just say print. We'll say, what luck! You have found a, and then we'll just put in new treasure. Worth, and then so what we have is we have the treasures, the new treasure, and that will give you the value. Treasures, new treasure. So we're taking the treasure dictionary and we're finding the key of the new treasure, and then it's going to give us that value. We'll say gold. So what luck, you found a new treasure worth whatever that value is, gold. Okay, else update the player dictionary accordingly. So if you got a trap, that means that you lose health points. So remember we have this player dictionary, so the player health, that is just a number. So we can just use regular operations on it. We'll say minus equal 2. And remember, if you do minus equal, it's the same thing as saying, that equals player health minus 2, right? This means the same thing, minus equal 2. And we're going to print what happened. We'll say print, alas, you fell into a trap and lost 2 health points. And we can tell them again, your current health is, and we'll access in the dictionary using the key. So player health, and that will give us the value. And that's it. That's all we have to do for the search one. Right? We've assigned a random outcome, and then we have an if-else statement to tell us what to do depending on what that outcome is. It either appends the inventory or it decreases the health, and it prints a statement for each one. All right, now to the next one, the check status. Displays the player's current health and inventory. It gets an argument of the player dictionary, the player stats including health and inventory. Of course, that's our player dictionary. So the example output just lists health and inventory, or if it's empty, you tell them you don't have any items yet. Okay, so these are just print statements. For the most part, we have one if else. So first we'll print your current health is, we'll do the health again, just like we did above. And then, yes, let's do if inventory, if player inventory. So what this does, we can just write that as the if statement. We don't have to write anything after that. This is saying like if it's evaluating to true if it's not empty. If it's just an empty list, then this will be false and this won't run. But if there's anything inside this list, then this if statement will run. Okay, so we want to print, see this? We've got Ruby gold coin, these are separated by commas. It's just a string. If we were to just print, you have, and then we put player inventory, what this would look like would be a list. It would look like a list. It would be in the brackets, and it would have strings inside the brackets separated by commas. If you recall, there's a really helpful way to turn a list into a string. It's kind of the reverse of split. We've seen where you take a string and you can split it into a list. Well, you can join a list into a string, and it's dot join. Okay, so we dot join. But before, like what you use with join is before this dot here, you actually tell it what to join with. So if you wanted it all smushed together, you could just have open quotes here. But if we want after each item a comma and a space, that's what you type in. Type in comma space dot join player inventory. And that will allow it to print like this as opposed to looking like a list. And then of course, else print, you have no inventory items, or whatever you want to say here. That's probably not the most fun way to say it. And that's that. That's all this does. It just checks the status, gives you the current health, tells you what you have. Maybe we could write a little bit more. You have in your inventory. All right. Now we've got this end game. End the game and display a summary. So for the arguments here, we have the player dictionary and the treasures dictionary. So we have our two dictionaries. The output is it's going to print the player's final health, inventory contents, and total score value. So again, this is going to be a lot of print statements. So let's look at our to-dos and let's follow just step by step. First one, calculate total score by summing the value of the collected treasures. So we'll save it in a variable. We'll just call it total score because that's what they said. So total score equals, and we know that we're going to take the sum of something. What we're summing are all of the items in the inventory. Sum works on lists, right? So sum is something you can call on a list. You can sum all of the items that are part of that list. You can create a list using list comprehension here. That's the fastest way to do it. You know that you want, let me just put it in pseudocode for a second. So with pseudocode, I'm gonna write it above here real quick. So let's think about this together. So we want a list of all the values of the treasure items, right? So we know that that is going to be the treasures, like the item for each item is the value, if we call like for items, right? And then we want it for every single one of them for all items in the inventory. So what it looks like is treasures item, and this is a variable we're creating for the list comprehension for item. So for every item in the player, in player inventory. For every item in the player inventory, you want the treasures item. So this inventory is just a list. It's iterating through this list. And each one of those is going to correspond to a key for this treasure dictionary. And for each of those, it's going to give you, this is a value, a number. So ultimately, what this is going to look like a list of numbers. And then the sum will sum those numbers and save it into total score. So now we just print this out. So we're going to print the final health. Let's see, what does it say? Hold on, print final health items and total value. Okay, we'll just do this. Final health. Player health. Oh, I forgot my curly braces here. health. And we'll say items collected. Again, there's probably a prettier, fun way you could do this. I'm keeping it as simple as possible. Items collected, and that's going to be the inventory list. But think about this for a second. Player inventory. But we don't really want to repeat the items, right? We just want to see one of each type of thing. At least that's how I interpret it. If you want to repeat the items, that's fine. You could even find a way to tally them up to like get a number of how many each are. That's like a good stretch goal if you want to try that later. You could also do this. You could turn this list into a set. So now if it's a set, then it's only going to tell us the distinct values of this inventory list. So say you have like 5 gold coins, it's not going to print gold coin 5 times. It's going to print it 1 time. And then let's do one more new line. And we'll say total score in gold. And that's what we just calculated up here. It's just total score. And then give just some kind of ending message. We'll do nestring again. And we'll do their name. So we'll have player and name. Cool. So got all that done. Now, arguably, this is the most complicated part. Run game loop. The main game loop. It manages the rooms and the player decisions. It gets 2 arguments once again. It gets the player dictionary and the treasures dictionary. Here's what the flow looks like. There are 5 rooms. So it's even giving us a hint and saying use a for loop, range 1 to 6. So we know we're going to have to use a for loop. Inside each room, use a while loop for player actions. This is your big hint to say use a while loop for each room so that you stay in that room unless something changes. It displays the options. And then if you have health below 1, ends the game early. So of course, if your health is 0 or negative, you lose. Let's look at our to-dos. Try to keep it really simple. Start with a for loop. For room in range 1 to 6. And recall it's because we want it to start at 1 and end at 5. So this is inclusive, this is exclusive. This starts at 1, this ends at 5. So for every room, inside each room, prompt the player choice using input. But it gave us this hint, right? It said use a while loop. So we're going to do this. We're going to say while true. This means that for each one of the rooms, this is going to run unless something breaks out. Okay, the while true means keep running these options unless something breaks it. This will become a little bit more clear as we add things, okay? So for the room in range, while it's true, use if and elif statements to handle the choices, rooms 1 through 4. So this is inside this while loop, guys. And actually, let me indent the comment so that it's clear where we are here. Oops. Okay. Use an if else. So first, if choice equals 1, and we're going to have to add a user input for choice.
So we'll add in a user input choice right after the while loop. We don't want it to be outside of the while loop because we want them to be able to have a choice every time after they make a selection. So we'll just go ahead and define that as choice equals input, and we'll give them a little prompt. Enter your choice. Indicate that they should give us the numbers 1 through 4. So they've made their choice. Now we have all of our if and elif statements depending on what their choices are. So elif choice equals 2. Elif choice equals 3. And then of course for each of these we're going to do something separate depending on what the game instructs us to do. So elif choice equals 4. And then if they don't give us anything 1 through 4, we need to give them an opportunity to change whatever their submission is. So for this else one, we know that we're just going to print a statement letting them know, hey, this is invalid. So print, we'll say select, or selections must be a number between 1 and 4. So if that runs, it's just going to continue this while loop. It's just going to go ahead and just keep allowing them to give new choices. So look, for our second to-dos, we want to break or return appropriately when the player quits or dies, and then we're going to call end game after all rooms are explored. So we can think about, for each of these choices, we'll either break or return appropriately, but we know for sure that we're going to call endgame. So that is going to be after the for loop is executed. So below, with the same indentation of the for loop, we'll just run endgame. And we'll recall that that is going to take the arguments, if we scroll up, player and treasures. So we'll run endgame with player and treasures. So now we just have to think about what happens with each of our individual choices. If choice equals 1, we know we want to search the room. And we did write a function that can help us with that. So we'll run search room and takes the arguments player and treasures. And we need to think about what will happen if they get a trap. If the player hits a trap, their health could potentially go below 1. It could go to 0 or to a negative number, in which case the game would need to end. They can't continue playing the game if they have too many traps. So we'll say if player health is less than 1, so that means it's 0 or below. So if player health is less than 1, we can give them a little print statement here. We'll just let them know, hey, you died. Oh no. And then we need to end the game. So we'll run our end game with the player and treasures. And this part is super important. If we run end game here, we do not want end game to be run again after the for loop. So we type in return. This return statement means that this function, the run game loop, it's over. We return here, it is not going to continue for anything beyond that. It won't run that second end game. If we didn't use the return, it would run end game twice, which is not what we want. We want it just to be printed one time. So we add that return. All right, so that takes care of choice 1. If the choice equals 2, we need to move to the next room. First, we're going to print out a little message. So we'll just let them know what room they're currently in, or let them know you're going to move to the next room, ... And we could even let them know too what room they're going to move into. So we'll say maybe time to explore room, and then in the curly braces, we can use our room variable that is part of our for loop. That is just a number. That room variable is just placeholder for whatever number we're in between 1 and 5 right now. So that will show a number. Move to the next room, ... time to explore room, and then a number. And then we'll just break out. And that breaks us out of the while loop. So now we're no longer in that while loop. It breaks back out to continue the for loop, meaning it will move to the next room after that break. Now we'll go to choice equals 3. That's just to check the status. So we wrote a special function for that, and we can type it in here. So check status, we get player, and that will check the status for us. That's all we have to do, right? That will run, and it'll just continue this while loop. So after that goes, it's going to just give the choice again, right? And the users can remain in that room. Choice number 4, we're going to quit. So we'll just write a little message to them. We'll just say, you are a quitter. For shame, or whatever you want to put, just being silly here. And we need to run endgame. We'll put in the right arguments. And then of course, just as before, if we run endgame here, we need to return the function at this point because we don't want it to run endgame twice. We only want it to run that one time. We're looking at all this. We're missing a couple of things. we are not displaying our options. We're giving this choice, but we haven't shown any options, and we wrote a function for that. Display options. So now every time this while loop starts over, it's going to display the options that we wrote. It's going to let them know like what room number they're in and what all these numbers mean. Then it's going to give us an input. Recall that display option gives the current room number. That is, again, the room that we're using in that for loop, right? So display options with the current room number, and it will print that current room number and all of the options. And we can just quickly take a look at everything else, and it looks like we have taken care of all 4 of our options, as well as called endgame at the very end. We can save everything we have, and we can try running the file, and we'll see if we got through all of these prompts without any syntax errors. Tell us your name. I'll type in my name here, Eileen. So 0 and 1, what would you like to do? Let's try searching for treasure. Let's see if it works. Type in 1. Selection must be a number 1 through 4. So it didn't like that, but look at what we forgot to do. We forgot that user input is always a string. Okay, so we need to go back here. For our choice, we have a couple options. We can either make each of our choice equal to, we can make that equal to the strings of those numbers, or we can choose to just change our input to an integer, which is a little faster. So we're going to make the input into an integer by using the int. For the next one, I'm going to go ahead and open up my Good Bash terminal because I do prefer that. Let's go ahead and run the file again. Tell us your name. Let's enter my name. Okay, we're in room 1. Let's try searching for treasure again. All right, awesome. We fell into a trap. We lost points. Your current health is 8. Okay, let's see if we can move to another room. You move to the next room. Time to explore room 1. Oh, uh-oh. So that's not what we expected. Let's go back to this message and look at it. In our print statement, we just have the room number, but recall when we have time to explore a room and then room, that is the current room we're in. We want the next room. So let's go ahead and do room plus 1, because remember that's just a number. We can do addition with that. So let's save, and let's try again. Okay. Let us try to move into the next room after we found a little bit of treasure. Move to the next room, time to explore room 2. We're in room 2. Perfect, so we have that. Let's check and see if we can look at our inventory. It tells us our current health and what we have in our inventory. Excellent. Now let's see if we can quit the game, and we can. We'll notice that our message, it works. The formatting is just a little bit off, and that's just how we have spaces after our new lines. We can pretty easily fix that. We'll just take our spaces away here. It'll look just a little nicer. And let's test a couple other things. It's important to test lots of different options on your code. So we'll run it again this time. And now let's just see what happens if we continue to move through the rooms. Just move through all the rooms. Will it quit after 5? Let's take a look. It does, but it says move to the next room, time to explore room 6. Well, that's not quite right. We don't have more than 5 rooms. So we need to change this print statement here by using another if-else statement. So let's go to where we are. So we have choice equals 2. We only want that to print if the room number is 4 or below, right? So we'll say if room is less than or equal to 4. So if it's 4 or below, then we can print that. But otherwise, so if it's not 4 or below, that means it's 5. So then we'll just print that they finished the game, right? So we could just put something like, you have explored the dungeon. Well done. And then it will still break after either one of those. So let's save that. Let's try it again. Make sure that works properly. So let's move through the rooms once more. Go to room 3, 4, 5, and if we quit, look at that. You've explored the dungeon. Well done. We give our final health items and score and our thank you message. Excellent. So the one more thing that we need to test is what happens if we just lose all of our health points. If we just keep exploring and exploring and our health points go to 0, we need to make sure that that works. So we will just continue to search, and wow, we're having a lot of good luck here. A lot of inventory items. So we'll just keep exploring until our health is almost down. Health is 2. Aha! Here we go. So you fell into a trap and lost 2 health points. Your current health is 0. You died, oh no. Gives us our final health, our items, and our total score. But just pretty good. Let's take a look at these items collected though. If we look at this items collected, it's still in this set notation. It has the curly braces. Each item is a string. It's with the quotes, and then separated by commas. And we want it to look just like a regular list. Just a single string, no curly braces. And we can do the same thing with a set as we did with the list. We can join it. So if we scroll up to where we have the set, right up here for set player inventory, we can use a join with that set. And let's fix our little quotes here. Okay, so similar format. So inside the quotes, we have a comma and a space, dot join, and then with that set of the player inventory. And that will allow it to print normally, like just like a normal list of words. So let's save and test it out one last time. And we'll just kind of explore. We'll just search for treasure over and over again until we die once more so we can see. And of course we had far worse luck, but we can immediately see that it is just written as a word. It's no longer written just as a set. So I think we're good. Again, this is the most basic version of this. There's a lot more complex things you could do. You could definitely kind of just make it more fun through your own personal touches. And there are a lot of correct ways to achieve the things that we did here. This is just one way to do it. But I hope it was helpful, and I hope you enjoyed this exercise and that this tutorial video was pretty fun and easy to follow along. Please, if you have any questions, reach out on Slack, and if you have any feedback, you can always let me know. Thank you so much.